Welcome back to National Report. The National College Sports Association, the NCAA, recently updating its policy for transgender student athletes. Now, that's now receiving some criticism. The new policy allows a sport-by-sport approach when it comes to transgender athlete participation. Joining us now to discuss is Selina Soule, an NCAA track and field athlete at Florida Atlantic University, and also attorney Christiana Holcomb is here with us as well. Great to see you, ladies. Thanks for taking the time today. Let's start by looking at the NCAA and their new policy here. The statement reads this, saying, quote, the NCAA Board of Governors on Wednesday voted in support of a sport-by-sport approach to transgender participation that preserves opportunity for transgender student athletes while balancing fairness, inclusion, and safety for all who compete. And Selina, I'd like to start with a conversation with you here because you've experienced participation in sports when it comes to transgender athletes. Talk to me about this new policy and the challenges you've dealt with.
I think that the NCAA has failed to protect women's sports by them passing the responsibility off to the individual sports. It shows that they do not care to protect women and ensure that no other girls have to experience what I went through, because in high school, I had to compete against biological males for all 4 years. I raced against these athletes over a dozen times, and every single time I lost by a landslide. And it's just a very frustrating and heartbreaking thing to have to go through. And it's very disappointing that the NCAA does not want to protect women's sports.
We've been following stories about collegiate level swimming, where you would have biological men, transgender women, compete against biological women. Selina, you mentioned, of course, track and field as well, where you might tend to see that advantage more distinctly so. Have you talked with your fellow athletes about the frustration that you feel? Do they agree with that sentiment? Again, the unfair advantage that you've pointed out.
Everybody that I've talked to that has competed against these biological males have thought it was unfair, but most are too afraid to speak out due to retaliation. But we need as many people as we can speaking about this issue and fighting for this issue, because that's the only way that we will get fairness returned to our sports.
Christiana, when you heard about the NCAA policy, did that give you hope that certain sports would come to their own conclusion? What do you think this might mean for athletes like Selina?
Well, what the NCAA did here is shameful. It frankly was an act of cowardice. They looked at the outrage over the Leah Thomas situation, and instead of protecting fairness for female athletes like Selina, they chose to pass the buck to other athletic organizations, recognizing their old policy was broken, but they still failed to fix it. So I think it's deeply unfortunate, again, an act of cowardice. And this is why it's so important for female athletes like Selina, their coaches, colleges and universities, concerned parents to stand up, to speak out and say, we must protect fair play for girls like Selina.
I see. Okay. Selina, when it comes to transgender teammates or transgender competitors as well, could there be a solution in the track and field, in the sport of track and field, that you think could be a fair solution so everyone could participate in the sport?
We need to ensure that women's sports stay for women. Everybody has the right to participate in sports, but they need to compete where it's most fair to everybody involved.
Christiana, where do you see this going? Do you anticipate even some legal challenges? As Selina was pointing out, some athletes are afraid to speak out, and perhaps they wouldn't. But do you think we could see some things in the near future as Selina and other teammates have voiced their concerns?
I certainly hope so. And we've already seen courageous athletes like Selina, others in Connecticut, West Virginia, Florida, and elsewhere, Idaho, Utah, who are standing up, speaking out, and yes, making legal challenges to these unfair policies that frankly violate Title IX. The whole purpose and promise of Title IX for young women was to ensure that fair and level playing field. And so we look forward to a day when that fair playing field is restored.
All right. Well, we'll definitely keep an eye on this story and follow up with you two ladies. Selina Soule and Christiana Holcomb, thank you both so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.